Le Déclin is the sixth full-length album from Ataraxie. This is a Rouen, France-based funeral death doom metal band who started out as more of a Peaceful 3-inspired kind of deal early on. They had more modern influences by the time they'd hit in the early 2000s. They covered a worship song, Lost and Morning Beloved, with their good kind of notes to take, and their style had become a little bit more straightforward in terms of incorporating funeral doom into their death metal sounds by Slow Transcending Agony in 2005. They'd also formed a side project, which was more of a funeral doom thing to start, but it kind of, Funeralium differentiated itself over time, but was kind of a concurrent thing for many years. By 2019, the band had put out a record I would say is their high point, without realizing that it had been a big shift for the band. They spent several years developing and redeveloping their sound because one of their key components, original guitarist, had left the band and was playing in a different group at that point. And so they kind of hit the reset button and onboarded a couple new guitarists and developed their sound. It was one of their best records. I think that following up Resinius, it was probably a difficult thing to consider for several years because it had to be up to that par, up to that level of presentation, but also had to recreate the intense dynamic of that record. And I think one of the best things that this record does is it recreates the feeling, the subject matter, and iterates upon a lot of the essence of that in redefining Ataraxie, but it finds a way to be more economical with its ideas and put out a record that is both more focused and immersive. So we'll experience at least 15 to 20 seconds of that here with the clip, and then I'll talk about it a bit more. So when an album is cut into 20-minute songs and there are just four of them, I think it's an intense way to present something to someone who might not have the attention span. If you're a fan of immersion, of course, this is the perfect way to sit with a considered level of music and kind of get the breadth of what they're capable of within a couple of songs. I think patience is absolutely required. It's kind of a given, but I would preempt that you need a certain level of attention span to sit with a band like this. That said, they're pretty active. They kind of move at what I would consider more of a mournful congregation-esque pace. They do use a lot of leads to keep things lively. They've got riffs. They're not necessarily moving at a snail's pace. This isn't pure funeral doom. There is death metal at the heart of it, and they make sure that you know that this is a death metal band as well as a funeral doom metal band. And so that makes for some strong use of melody, pretty active guitar work, as I'd said, and this is really a refinement of what they'd worked on for their 2019 record, in the sense that these songs are a little bit more direct, they're a little bit more themed, and each one has their own continuity within the whole. The way that I sort of cue the listener into what this is and how to approach it is that, yes, these might be 21-minute songs, but something changes and cycles through that is emergent and interesting at least every 5 to 7 minutes. It kind of cycles through about as often as a song would on a regularly paced album, and you'll find that there'll be a new point of interest, a new voicing, or a change in pace, or they'll strike upon some death metal every 5 to 7 minutes. So there is enough engagement that this isn't just pure dead air and floating along. Otherwise, this is a very depressive, nihilistic record. It is focused on very dark subject matter. It is the end of the earth, after all, and I think that there's some really great performances here, emotional outbursts per the vocalist, very dramatic melodic movements here and there, and just there's a lot of good death metal in there too, and that kind of balances out a lot of the dramatism. So it doesn't go quite as over the top as some of the more indulgent points on the last record, but focuses in on heavier stuff. And I think that by cutting back on some of the layers and focusing in a little bit more, it's actually more immersive. It's a little bit easier to get into the unrest and the aggression of it because they've been more direct. So I really appreciate it. I think it's one of their best albums, probably their best so far for my own taste, and a record that I had a great time with. It does get a high recommendation from me, and it released on October 25th, so go check it out now and see what you think, and read my review for more in-depth thoughts on each of the songs and kind of the band's history a little bit.